Said it'd be a little early. Let's get ready for part 2 of the season. All right. Welcome to Answers with Guests. This is Answers by Guests. This is our 8th season. This is our 8th episode of the season. We got halftime adjustments. Season 2, part 2, I guess, of this season is about to begin. This is the most fun part of fantasy for me, the most hated by me and by most as well, I'd imagine. We got injuries. Now we got bye weeks. So we got a few things to get into. So let's get into it. Switch this nonsense around. Bada boom. Bada boom. All right. So season 8, episode 8. If you're with us, you're with us. I'm a half an hour early, but I want to get this done so that I can do the other things I need to do tonight. Got an early morning tomorrow. If you thought I was going live at 9, I'm sorry, but you can always watch it. You can ask questions if you got them, and you know that myself, Rob, or the other members of the Answers by Guest family will chime in. So close. And what do I mean by so close? You're going to see in a minute the record of the props. It's one thing that I've been sort of throwing out that this season and talked about it on the Saturday show with Rob. I'm targeting players parallel to the players that we talk about on Answers by Guests, and we've done for 8 seasons. When I'm looking at props, I'm looking for the lesser known players who I feel like could do some things that have low reception or yardage totals or high tight end odds, and trying to target them. And we've been floating above the 67% mark, and that's where you need to be no matter what you do. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. It was a song, I believe, back in the 70s. Truer words had never been spoken, but we were so close on so many. The one thing I like when you're taking a game, a team, or an over-under is if it's like 42.5, you buy that half so that it's 42, and it usually just costs you 10% more juice. But I'd rather push than lose by a half point. Well, you can't do that really in props unless you, even that with the adjusted ones. So I lost a ton by a half a reception. I'd say a likely by half a yard. So Rashee Rice is crying, and so am I. 35-17 on the season, just over 67%. And ABG 3P this week was right at that mark, 67%, 20 and 10. You can go back and check those if need be. And if you are in the market looking for props, then you got to watch the show. Usually it's the big show with Rob. We'll talk more about that in the end, what we're going to do this week. We got the London game coming up. 5 guys to despise. Started this last week. Typically, we do 5 guys for your eyes. These are 5 guys to despise. These are 5 guys that aren't doing so hot. A couple of them stayed the same, like this guy. I think he's right about cuttable. And the only problem with Zamir White and cutting him is, the moment you do, he'll have a breakout. And this is the time of the season, second part of the season, third part of the season, and even of course, the fourth part, where running backs become gold. But he has just looked terrible. The team's in disarray. They want to get rid of, and he wants to go, Devontae. So we'll have to see what happens, but I despise him right now. Number 2, Brandon Ayuk was on this list last week, continues to just underwhelm, and a lot of people spent a high draft pick on him, and he's not producing. So we can despise him. Jacoby Brissett, we despise him because he's bringing everybody else on the Patriots down. You say, well, the Patriots, they don't have that great of players. Well, Hunter Henry in a dead sea of tight ends should be viable, and he's not. Jalen Polk, who we'll talk about later on tonight, even Demario Douglas, and Ramondre. He had just one good game. I think it was week 1, and that was the only time that Jacoby looked okay. They need to go to Drake May. I despise Jacoby Brissett, and that's long been known. Gabe Davis, we had Trevor Lawrence on here last week. Trevor Lawrence played better, as we thought he would, but Gabe Davis is somebody who was a 5 guy for your eye in July. And now we despise him. Looks like another wasted contract for the Jags. And Jair Alexander, and I put him on the list. Why? Because I thought the Packers, and I said it, 2 shows, show 6, episode 6 and episode 7, I thought that they would beat the Vikings. Well, we'll talk more about that in a second, but I was planning on Jair playing, and he did not. And say whatever you want. Maybe, he was actually hurt. Maybe he was just afraid of Justin Jefferson. But I despise him for that. And I'm allowed to because I'm a Packers fan. Answers with guess. This is week 4.5. This is halftime adjustments. Imagine that. No Jair, but I did get the Darnold pick. I said that he would have at least 1. I said he'd have 2, but there was no line for 2, so I took the 1. That was a win. You can't beat a team when spotting 28 points. I mean, you go down 28, and it's tough to come back. They almost did, and they would have won if the kicker would have made a field goal. He's I think the only one to miss a field goal under 40 yards, I think it was, this season. Pretty ridiculous, and he's missed 2 field goals that would have given him 2 wins. They'd be 4-0 if he would have made the field goal that he missed against Philly, the field goal that he missed against Minnesota. But shoulda, coulda, woulda. But we'll talk more about the players in this game when we get into the questions, because I see some people will have questions about this because of the Christian Watson injury. What was that? I had Breece Hall. Courtland Sutton at least scored a touchdown. Javonte actually looked pretty good. Mike Williams is coming on. I've talked about him for weeks. He might be somebody to look at in the waiver wire this week. The Dolphins are absolutely trash. Titans, the 2 running backs. Other than that, you got nothing. What these games? Come on. Nice to see that. 6 competitive games with nice fantasy scoring. Very nice to see. Everybody was watching. Hopefully they switched over at least at the end and watched the Seahawks-Lions last night. Bengals-Panthers was good. Steelers-Colts. All these games. Fantasy relevance. The one right there in the middle on the bottom, Jordan Whittington showed off. I think he's the one to grab. Rob like Tutu Atwell. I had Jordan Whittington weeks ago in the 5 guys for your eyes. He looks like a favorite target to me. We shall see. No chance at that. These 4 games kill fantasy. And games like this are a fantasy player's worst friend. And even if you have players on the winning team who's dominating and they've produced, you still don't like it. And you don't like it from a prop perspective either. Because, take Isaiah Likely, for instance. He had 1 catch for 26, needed him over 26.5. Well, the Bills were never in this game. They had no reason to throw. He did have 1 target, and Lamar jump pass skipped it to him. That would have been a win, but Lamar has to act like everything is gymnastics. So it did not happen. But all these games, the 49ers, right? And when you have one team that's doing nothing and the other team is blowing them out, every single one of these games, it stinks, because if you got a running back for the Cardinals or a running back for the Eagles Eagles or a running back for the Bills or a running back for the Patriots, it's like, well, now the running back's not playing. And and receivers for the winning teams. So no chance at that. When you get games like that, is bad for fantasy. And about them, these games, the Browns, like, come on. The Raiders weren't even trying. And the Chiefs was just a debacle. The moment Rice went down, I knew that Rob had beat me. And many of us probably feel the same exact way. You did what I said finally. You threw the ball to DeAndre Swift. I think he had 9 catches for 90-plus yards. That's all you got to do. That's his game. It was nice to see Roschon get involved. I had 23 yards. I think I needed 30 and a half, so that kind of stunk. But Swift was killing it. They were checking it down for him, to him, and he was just doing what Swift does. So if the Bears continue doing this, they'll be good. And one thing about this, and I want to point this out, and I saw something when I was on the Answers by Guest page, another fantasy Facebook group. I don't remember who it was, but they said Caleb Williams is better or playing better than Jaden Daniels. And of course, the majority, if not everybody, laughed at it. But in reality, Jaden Daniels has the best offensive line in football. Caleb Williams has the worst. If Caleb Williams was on the Commanders, and Caleb or Jaden was on the Bears, we would all be talking differently about Caleb, and we'd be talking differently about Jaden Daniels. Situation, teams, offensive line, offensive scheme, it all matters. Jaden Daniels has great accuracy, pass percentage, but his passes he's not making difficult throws, and he has tons of time, and their running backs are just going to be able to run all over the place. And I'm going to throw up in my mouth, but worst comes to worst, Jeremy McNichols might be worth something at some point. Just, I would never put him on a 5 guy for your eyes, but if you're listening or watching now, it's a guy that's probably still sitting out there. But as long as Eckler's out, and if anything happens to Robinson, I mean, this offensive line is they're just pushing people around, and it's just helping everything. And that's the reason why I put a guy on the 5 guys for your eyes that we'll get to. It takes a man. Joe Flacco comes back again and does what he did all year last season. Little boy Anthony Richardson gets hurt, thinking he weighs 250 when he's half of that wet. Gets hurt. Joe Flacco comes in, and now all of the Colts wide receivers rise up. You see him out there in the waiver wire articles already about Josh Downs. It would not surprise me if in a couple weeks they get A.D. Mitchell going. Pittman rose from the dead. It just takes a quarterback with some accuracy and some gusto. And this elevates them all. Now, Jonathan Taylor's hurt, and I'm sure if you're dying at running back, you want to look at Trey Sermon, but how long is that going to last? Maybe 1 week. It could be a good week for it, but you do what you like. Stroud winning this. Remember, I thought he would have a little bit of sophomore slump. I gave him a win for last week. So he is in the lead. He's sitting there at 67%, which, as I said, where you want to be. I'm going to do it all year. Just going to leave this here. These are 5 guys for your eyes, and I'm looking, and I thought so. Somebody is not on there that I feel like should be on there. I'm just going to continue to add to it when they hit, and that's Jordan Whittington, because I think if he's still out there, you got to grab him, because I think he's the best one. As long as Kupp and or Nacua stay out, I think he's just going to continue to get better and better, and Stafford seems to like him. A couple of these guys went down a peg, a couple of them went up a peg last week. Carson Steele could probably come off the list, and he will next week. He's done. He fumbled. They put Hunt in. Hunt took it off. Hunt played very well. If you grabbed him and you played him last week, that's good. But if you didn't play him last week and you go to put him in this week, CEH is probably coming back. He was out with PTSD. He feels better. He's practicing, probably coming back this week. So that's going to just muddy things even more. Kareem Hunt might be a good trade target. Maybe he continues this for a couple more weeks. Not trade target, trade chip for you to throw out there if somebody needs a running back. Somebody might take him with his big box score from last week. I think it's going to be a headache. P. Ryan's not going anywhere, but I think Carson Steele is done. You can close up his VHS tape and return it back to the porn store. 5 guys for your eyes. Number 5, Drake May. Why? Because sooner or later, some more of us will, I'm sure, need quarterbacks. We already do. Tua owners, Richardson owners, so on and so forth, and it's just going to continue. And they need to turn to him. And I think he's going to elevate everybody on that offense. Jacoby Brissett is just terrible. So just keep your eye out, especially 2 QB leagues. He's probably already owned. But if he's not, pick him up because you're probably going to enjoy the fruits of his labor in a few weeks. They said Jacoby's starting next week. We'll see about week 6 forward. CEH just talked about him. The reason is clear. I could easily see him. He looked good last year when Pacheco had to go out. So he's still got juice. He was a first-round pick his rookie year, and I think maybe even not the season after because rookie year didn't go as planned. A lot of people thought were a little higher on him than we were, but he's got talent. So I think it'll be him and Hunt. So keep your eye out on him. A lot of people already have him stashed. I have him stashed in one league, and every other league he's stashed by somebody else. But if you're in a league and he's sitting out there and you're dying at running back, worth a shot. AJ Barner, if you watched the game last night, Seattle game, tight end, rookie. I knew nothing of him. But typically when I watch, this is where I get a lot of the 5 guys from, going back, watching clips, rewatching games. I find the guys. I'm like, who's that guy? He only was on the field a few times. But he looks the part. AJ Barner looked the part and got a few targets. And I think he's better than Noah Fant at this point. And Geno seems to like him. And tight end is terrible this year. He is worth a look for sure. And they got a good matchup this week going against the Patriots. So if you need a tight end, maybe you've been riding Goddard for the past couple of weeks when he was the only wide receiver basically that they had. He's a good target to look at. Jalen Polk and Keon Coleman, put them both on the list because I feel like they both have severely underwhelmed. And I think that they go to Drake May and that elevates Polk. He had I would say his best game of the year the other day, and Keon Coleman as well. So I think these 2 guys are going to just slowly start to elevate. It's rookie wide receivers. These lower tier rookie wide receivers, second tier type of guys usually take a few weeks to get going. This is part 2 of the season. Hopping into week 5. If they're sitting out there, I think they're 2 guys that you should have your eye on or scoop up. Everybody's going to be going after the same 3, 4, 5 wide receivers this week. If these 2 guys or either one of them are sitting out there, they're a nice fallback option if you don't win the fab bid or you're just too far down the waiver list. And number 1, Noah Brown. That's another one. Almost threw up in my mouth with this as well. But we've seen this before from Noah Brown. We've seen it with Dallas a little bit, and then we saw it with the Texans. He has some explosiveness in him. He's got some run after the catch. He's got good hands, and he's starting to emerge as an option for Jaden Daniels. They need a number 2. A lot of people are going to stat box watch and say, oh, Olamides Zaccheaus, he's the one to grab for Washington. I would grab Noah Brown. I think he's their second best wide receiver behind Terry, and I think it's just a matter of time before he has a blow-up week. Could be as early as next week. Thursday night football, I'm looking at the 2 tight ends. Trey Palmer's hurt. Jalen McMillan's hurt. I think Kadon is going to continue this. I said that I felt like he was going to have another solid week last week for 2 in a row. He actually did better with that third wide receiver being out. More than likely, maybe they'll play 1 or 2 of them. I like Kadon's trajectory, and I think Kyle Pitts. I think this is going to be what is it? Squeaky wheel gets the grease type of game for Kyle Pitts. A lot of talk about him getting goose egg, not even being targeted. And I think it starts off early and often. And I think he abuses the Tampa Bay secondary and over the middle. So if you are somebody that has been playing Kyle Pitts and you're getting pissed off about it, I'm sticking with it for 1 more week. I like the tight ends, and I will be looking at their catch totals and the reception totals. I'd imagine Pitts has gone down, Ottens has gone up. I'm going to guess they're both somewhere in the 3.5 range, probably in the mid to high 30s, low 40s. I'm going to be taking a peek at them, and if I end up taking them, I'll post it on the page. Questions from the Facebook group, rolling right along. You can't see this, but Josue wants to know, should I trade Daniels for an RB? And looking at his team, I can actually go to this real quick so I can see it better, because I don't want to sit here and spend time trying to guess. I'm looking at his team, and he's got Kyren Williams, Javonte Williams at running back. Then he's got Carson Steele, Zamir White, and Tyler Algier, Roschon. He's got Lloyd on the IR for the Packers, so that's a wasted space. But he's just filling up an IR, so maybe it's dynasty. Who knows? It must not be dynasty, otherwise you would not be trading Daniels. I'm not trading Daniels. I'm not trading Daniels for running back because you have no other running back on your team. I would drop Steele. I would likely drop White. I'm seeing the quarterbacks he has on the waiver wire. He's got Geno, he's got Baker, Trevor Lawrence, Kirk Cousins, Caleb Williams, Daniel Jones. So Caleb, Kirk, maybe Lawrence if he puts another good one together. He does have the Colts this week, and Baker Mayfield. So there's 4 options out there that are going to be huge downgrades from what you're getting out of Jaden Daniels right now. I don't think a running back really helps you. It's possible Javonte Williams started to get it going last week. He's playing against Vegas this week. I'm going to just hold on to Daniels and ride this out, and I'm going to drop Steele and maybe Zamir White and pick myself up a running back off of the wire. Josue, if you're watching or when you do, reply to this, tag me or tag Rob. I want to see your running back waiver wire. I guarantee there's probably something out there that you could drop Steele and pick up something better for just a little extra insurance. I'm not trading Daniels, not with what's out there on the waiver wire. Those are all good for a QB2, but you don't want to be going to bat with those guys. And you said 6 points for a rushing TD. Those guys aren't going to get you rushing TDs, not like Jaden Daniels will. The answer is no from me. Jeremy wants to know best streaming defenses. I say Seattle's the best one this week, going against the Patriots. More than likely, they could be out there. Yeah, they had 3 good weeks, but people probably dropped them because they're playing Detroit last night. In Miami, if their offense had any sort of a glimmer of hope to them, would have been a pretty good one. I keep saying the Patriots, and I think Miami's playing the Patriots. I think I'm making a mistake. Let me just double check this. Yeah, Miami's playing the Patriots. Seattle is playing the Giants, even worse. So, especially if Neighbors banked up. So, Seattle playing against the Giants. Miami's playing against the Patriots. So, that's why Miami's a second one, Jeremy. I would go for one of those 2 if you could. Can't read this, so I'm going to go to the slide. When there's so much I can't fit in. Josue wants to know he has $88 out of 100 fab left, so that's most of it. Would 55 be too much for Dontavian Wicks? He's 1-3 at hurting because of injuries and bye weeks. Not much left in free agency. Downs is available too. He's going to try and get both. Well, you have JSN, you have Tank Dell, who I think Dell will be back this week, and I think that you will like what you get out of him. You have Amon Ra and Devonta Smith both on bye, and you have Cooper Cup on the wire or on the IR. Based on what you got here, your running backs look pretty good. Tight ends are okay. I don't think I would go 88. I'm going to talk about Wicks a little bit more because I think somebody else has a question. I think there's like 2 questions about him. Yeah, a lot of it depends on your league. And I think somebody mentioned something along this, like how much do you guys often pay for this? I think Wicks had the huge blow up. I think he fills in nicely for Watson. They play the same spot, but Watson really hasn't been getting a ton of targets. And of course, then neither was Wicks when he was spelling Watson, but they were in catch up mode. And hopefully, and I also would like to rationally think that Green Bay is not going to be down 28 nothing in essentially the first 20 minutes of a game very often. I hope. So it just takes a little bit out of it. Dobbs is probably out there. I know somebody else has a question about him. He's a nice fallback option. I kind of feel like Dobbs is more of the closer possession PPR type of guy, but we saw Wicks blow up towards the end of the year last year. If you really want him, I'm fine with it, but I'm looking at your team. You got Dobbins, who I've talked about. I won't put any more bad juju on him sooner or later. That's all I'm going to say. Jordan Mason, who they're saying CEH is back in 5-6 weeks. Dowdle, who's done just basically about nothing. Jonathan Taylor, who's hurt, probably not going to play this week. Algier and Ray Davis, who's never seen the field so long as James Cook. I actually feel like you need running back more because you got JSN, Dell, Amon Ra, Devonta. You got Cup sitting out there on the IR. I feel like if you spend $88 on Dontavian Wicks, later in the season, a running back is going to emerge and you're not going to get him. So if it was me, I would hold a little bit back just because of that, because I actually feel like your wide receivers are much stronger than your running backs, especially later on in the season. I mean, what you can ride with Taylor and Robinson once CMC comes back, if he comes back good and Mason doesn't play. You can ride with Taylor, Robinson, and Mason. But I feel like behind them, your team is really struggling. And your top 4 wide receivers, and that's not including Cup, I think are all solid. So I'm not going to go too crazy. I would not go that crazy. I might do, I'd probably do like, I'd probably go 44 tops on each of those guys. But the worst case scenario is you end up getting both, and now you're out of money. I actually feel like if Downs stays healthier, he might be better because he might just be their number 2. It's all about health with him. It's about the quarterback. And if Flacco continues to be the guy, we'll see how long Richardson's out. I haven't read or heard anything about it. But Wicks is one of like 4 guys. And Kraft got it going last week. I would not go too overboard, but you got to go with your gut, man. You know how your league is. I think that running back, and then in another week, 2 weeks, Jake Ferguson is your only tight end. You're going to need a tight end as well. So I'm not going to blow it on Wicks. That's just me personally. And speaking of Wicks, would you use the number 1 waiver on him if you have injuries a wide receiver with bye week starting? A little different. If you have wide receiver injuries and some wide receivers on bye weeks, and you need a guy this week, I would use the number 1 on Wicks. I feel like Fab budget is completely different than the waiver wire because you'll use the one, you'll fall down, but everybody else that makes it, you'll fall in front of them. So you could easily work your way up into the top 5 and get yourself somebody good when it goes. Wide receiver injuries and bye weeks. Yeah, depending on who your wide receivers are, because Josue had wide receiver bye weeks and injuries, but his guys were all studs. So that's why I was like, don't go too crazy. If you're 2 studs and 3 okay guys, now I'm a little more inclined to use number 1, Michael. And this trade looks like Tyreek Hill, he wants to receive Reek and give away Diggs. I would not do that. Week 8, they're saying Tua comes back. Can you live through week 5, 6, 7 without Diggs? Because you don't know how good or how poor the production is going to be. If they were smart, they do it. Anybody that watched the game, and you've seen a lot of the Miami games where Diggs runs those little pop screen, those little bubbles over the middle, where he's like 5 yards away and he takes off to the house most of the time. Well, Tennessee was guarding that. They were keeping everything close to the vest. They weren't trusting Snoop Huntley's arm, and rightly so. It was a good game plan. But if they designed some things to get Tyreek in space, and if a defense doesn't come with the same game plan, which we've seen before, teams are like, hey, this is how you stop them. But then the next week, it's like they don't even do that. And it's like, why? That was the blueprint. But it's possible. Who's the better one? Who's probably could end up scoring more points weeks 8 through 14? Obviously Hill. If you could survive the loss of Diggs, I'd be okay with it. And just hoping that Tua does come back week 8 and he's good for the remainder of the season. That's the one time I'd be okay with it. If the rest of your receivers are okay to carry you, and if you could live with a subpar game out of Hill this week. Haven't done the analyzation for week 5. But come back Saturday. But, I mean, if the guy offered it to you and the rest of your team looks good and you think that you could be pretty good without Diggs, it's not bad for the end of the season. But as of right now, on paper, results-based, if Tua doesn't come back, if anything goes bad, they are screwed. They're screwed. But if Tua comes back week 8, I think this trade is in your favor because I feel like Tank Dell's going to come back and he's going to take some of Diggs' stuff. Rob asked a question, Wicks or Dubs? It's a good question. Wicks is the hot answer. And towards the end of the year last year, Wicks was the better wide receiver. Jordan Love loves him. But he also likes Dubs. Dubs more of a possession guy. Wicks is more of a, I need a shot. We need a big play. It's so close. It really is. And for most people, I'm sure Wicks would be 90% and Dubs would maybe be 10. He's almost like a forgotten entity. I guess you go for Wicks. Everybody seems to be going after him. I'd go after both. Why not? And if you get Wicks, just know that everybody else is going after him, and maybe you could even flip him before week 5 and get something else. I love him. It's my favorite team. But I've seen Jaden Reed is the one that's going to be consistent. But I've seen them use both tight ends last year and this year with Love, and the wide receivers relatively disappear. I've seen Dubs have huge games, and Wicks doesn't, and Reed doesn't. So I feel like Dubs has yet to pop, and Wicks popped last week. So I feel like the sneaky choice is Romeo, and that's probably like if I was going to gamble or fab, I'd probably actually you could get them much cheaper, but I would probably just put one out for Dubs, save money, and let somebody else overspend on Wicks. Can't read it. So I'm going to the other thing. Let's see what we got. All right, so he says, so he's thinking of trying to make a trade, Williams says, for Zach Moss. He was thinking maybe Waddle and Judy for Moss. He's got Tyreek, JSN, Devonta Smith, so he'd be set at wide receiver, except this week. There's no Devonta, and Hill is but if you're getting rid of Waddle and Judy, I mean, Judy, you could sure use him this week with no Devonta Smith to have Hill, JSN, and Judy. His RBs are Gibbs. Okay. Singletary's been doing well. Pollard, he's on a bye. And Charbonnet, he's back to the backup one. Thinking of picking up Downs, Dobbs, or Atwell. I'd probably go in that order, William. If you're watching, you listed them Downs, Dobbs, or Atwell. I would actually go after them in that order. Also was thinking it, but Dobbs could end up being worth more because if Anthony Richardson comes back, I mean, we've seen it, and it sort of just kills the wide receivers. But I'd go down Stubbs, Atwell in that order. Also thinking of dropping Charbonnet. I would not do that for Hunt because Gibbs and Pollard are on bye. I would probably rather just trot Charbonnet out there against the Giants than Kareem Hunt this week, especially if CEH comes back. Let me just look. But thinking about, you want to go after Zach Moss. We saw what happened last week, right? When they finally gave Chase Brown the ball. Yeah, Kareem Hunt's going against the Saints on Monday night. That's going to be a tough sled for Kareem Hunt. Tough defense, tough up front. They're good against the run. I don't think I'd drop Charbonnet because Kenneth Walker is probably going to get hurt again. And Charbonnet, they used him sparingly, but mostly because Kenneth Walker was just taking everything to the house, it seemed. Some of those plays went for half the yardage. I'm sure Charbonnet would have came in on a few of those drives and gotten some more usage, when Walker was getting a breather. So I'm not dropping Charbonnet for Hunt. That backfield, it's two guys where one is oft injured, or Hunt with CEH coming back, P. Ryan also there as well. But I don't want to trade for Zach Moss. They finally used Chase Brown. He got loose. He's way more explosive. I've been saying it for weeks, said it all preseason. Cincinnati fans, I'm sure, were thinking, why is Zach Moss the RB1 for this team when we have Chase Brown sitting there? Chase Brown was set to be the RB1 before they picked up Zach Moss. I'm not doing it. And I'm definitely not trading Waddle and Judy. If he wants maybe just Waddle, I don't know. Because when Tua comes back, you might be kicking yourself about it. But Judy has been playing too well. He's the only one that can catch every ball that Deshaun Watson throws his way. I'm not doing it. You do sort of need a little bit, but I think I would be fine. Gibbs is on a bye. So you'd be rolling with Singletary and Charbonnet this week. I don't think Zach Moss is the answer for you. I really don't. I think that's going to leave you a little short, and especially with Zach Moss going against the Ravens this week, I don't think that's the right play. I would check the waiver wire, see if anything's out there. Go with Gut William, but I would hold onto my wide receivers. They've been dropping like flies a little bit more than running backs. So I'd be holding on to my guys. And that's it. Looks like we got some live comments. Let's see what people were saying. This one was first. What Kansas City wide receiver would you pick up besides Worthy? It's a great question. Justin Watson. I mean, Juju. They're all one and the same. Juju had success when he was there years ago. Justin Watson has success every time a wide receiver goes down. I saw something somewhere where somebody was saying, essentially, wouldn't it be crazy if Tyreek got traded back to Kansas City? He didn't look happy last night on the bench. Worthy is, I don't know if Worthy is going to do it. I think this is Travis Kelce. I really do. I think it just elevates him. He goes back where he was. Rice was eating the way that Kelce used to. And with Rice gone at least this week, probably longer, they still haven't announced it. They said they're not even going to know till next week. So you just have to put him on your IR and just wait for them to say, yeah, he's out for the season. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. But I think you just have to go with it. I mean, it's not going to be Sky Moore. Maybe it is. But I would look at probably Watson, Juju. I wouldn't go too crazy, though. I would look elsewhere, I think, this week. I think all the names everybody else is saying, the Downs, the Dobbs, the Wicks, Jordan Whittington, I would rather have over any KC wide receiver if he's out there. I just think there's other options than getting in this Kansas City mess that they have now. ABG League, St. Brown on bye, Puka on IR. Yes. So you were talking about Wicks, right? Yeah, I would use the number one on him. You got those two guys out, put them in. You play them this week. Should be a pretty good game for them. I believe they're playing the Rams. So Swiss cheese defense. Yeah, you put Wicks in. It's good. Thought it was at 9. Well, I think you just saw it because it looks like I was answering your question, I think, when you came in. Yeah, I made a post. Like, here's the thing. Facebook has changed. Facebook, whatever. They're very annoying. We all use it, because it's an option. But you used to be able to click something in a group. Maybe you still can, just I can't see it. But you used to be able to click something in a group where you could click a button and be like, all notifications, all posts, send me a notification. Because I feel like I put out there this morning, show at 9 o'clock. And then I had one or two people like, when's the show? And I'm like, you didn't see the post? No. Well, you didn't get a notification, is what that tells me, which means Facebook's just stupid. And maybe they got rid of that option. But if they didn't, I would click it. Now, William, nothing against you. I came on, I made a post around maybe like 7:15. And I was like, it's probably going to be a little earlier because I got an early morning. I found out tomorrow. So kind of wanted to be done by like 9:15, 9:30. So I'm on track for that rather than like 10 o'clock. So I started at 9:30. But I just answered your question. So hopefully I'm going to just go to this real quick, skip over Michael. Should I try to pick up Chase Brown? Yeah. I would rather pick up Chase Brown than trade for Zach Moss, 100%. 100%. Going back to the Hill Diggs trade offer, I applied with my team in that post. All right, so I'll look at that after because otherwise I got to log into Facebook and scroll through all that and whatnot. But Michael, I will take a peek at that for sure tonight, and I'll look at your team just so I can see. But it's like the long game. I think that's good for you, but I just think over the next 4 weeks. 3 or 4 weeks, it might put you in a hole, but I'm assuming, and you know what happens when you assume. So I'll take a look after this. So we got a Thursday game. I think it's going to be a good one. NFC South battle. I'm looking at the tight ends. Stay tuned to the page if you like to place any type of prop bet type stuff, because I'm looking at the two tight ends right now. I'm at a little over 67% on that. Now, Rob has a ton of stuff going on Friday and Saturday. And Saturday early, I have stuff going on. So we're going back and forth about, do we want to do something really late on Friday, like 11 p.m. Eastern? Or do we want to just record a show when we can and put it out there? So we might not be live this week because another issue that comes into it Sunday morning is the London game. And it's funny because a few weeks ago I texted Rob. I was like, remember when we used to wake up at like 5, 6 a.m. and go live for the London games? We used to set our clocks and wake up, drag ourselves out of bed, text each other, yo, wake up, it's 6 o'clock to go live, just to have it done by the 9 o'clock a.m. Eastern kickoff. That's not happening. We're too old. We're too rusty, too crusty. So we will post it on the page, but you'll probably never see it because nobody ever sees the notifications, which is annoying. But this is the beginning of part 2 of the season. Part 1 is over. We got a good baseline. Yeah, there's a lot of injuries, but there's a lot of good things that are happening. Things are looking good. Stay true with your team. Don't cut bait. There's a few guys we can do that on. I mentioned a couple of them. But the big name guys in good position, I think we hold true for at least another 4-week part at minimum. So I'll see you one way or another, whether it's live or recorded, Friday, Saturday. But it will definitely be one of those 2 days. Will not be Sunday. We have the London game. Michael, I will check out your team in a little bit. I'm going to go upstairs, get washed up, get ready for bed. I got an early day tomorrow. Best of luck on the waiver wire tonight. I'm not going too crazy, but you got to go with your gut. All right? So thank you for being here. Season 8. This is week 4.5. Answers with Guests. See you soon.